Three fake HOA security officers kicked down the door of a black homeowner, convinced their self-appointed authority mattered more than the law. They thought they could storm in, bark orders, and bully their way to compliance with nothing but fake badges and louder voices. But what they didn't expect, 90 kilograms of pure Pitbull justice waiting on the other side. The morning air hung quiet over the cul-de-sac, too quiet for a neighborhood that usually buzzed with sprinklers, lawnmowers, and chatter. Then came the sound that shattered that calm. 3 hard kicks, wood splintered, a front door buckled inward. Tony Brooks, tall, broad-shouldered, unmistakably black, with skin the shade of bronze under the morning sun, had been standing just a few feet away. His pulse sharpened, but his stance didn't flinch. These weren't cops. They weren't city workers. 3 men in khakis and cheap black tactical vests stood at his doorway, fake radios clipped to their shoulders, arrogance dripping from their posture. They looked like they were about to deliver the law itself, but the patches on their vests read HOA Security, stitched in crooked white letters. For months, Tony had dealt with these clowns, self-appointed enforcers from a homeowners association that didn't even govern his property. His house had been there before the HOA was ever formed. He'd told them that, in writing, in person, and loudly enough that half the block had heard. But these men didn't care. Power was their addiction, and today they'd overdosed. Bruno, the 200-pound pit bull standing behind him, felt it too. The dog's chest expanded, breath deep and heavy. His short black and white coat rippled as muscles tensed under his skin. His tail stiffened, and a low rumble rolled out of his throat like distant thunder. The 3 men on the porch exchanged smug glances, mistaking silence for fear. The leader, tall with buzzed gray hair and mirrored sunglasses, puffed his chest and spoke as if announcing a court order. "Mr. Brooks, we're here to conduct a compliance inspection. Your fence doesn't meet HOA standards." Tony's brows lifted slowly, his voice calm but edged with disbelief. "You again? I told you. I'm not in your HOA. My fence, my rules." The man smirked, taking a slow step forward. "We have authority over all community properties, sir. Either comply or we escalate." Tony tilted his head slightly. "Escalate? What, you gonna fine me?" "No," the leader replied, his tone flat. "We'll handle it ourselves. Have you ever dealt with an HOA that thinks their rules apply to everyone, even when you're not part of their little club? What would you do if a bunch of fake HOA cops tried to enforce community standards on your property when you're not even in their HOA?" Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where our viewers are tuning in from. And if you believe homeowners shouldn't have to answer to people flashing fake badges and made-up authority, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to Story Arc for stories that remind bullies what real ownership looks like. That's when Tony's gut tightened. Something was off. Their stance too confident, their tone too final. He'd dealt with plenty of HOA nonsense before. Warning letters, fake fines, even a threat about the shade of his Christmas lights. But this was different. These men weren't bluffing. The way they stood there, too steady, too sure of themselves, it wasn't posturing, it was intent. He shut the door calmly and turned the lock. The solid click echoed through the house. Bruno's ears twitched, his body rigid as a drawn bow. The pit bull's growl deepened, rolling up from his gut like distant thunder. And then, bang! The door shuddered hard under the first hit. The frame groaned, then a second, then a third. The lock snapped like a twig. The door blasted open so violently it slammed against the wall. For half a second, everything froze. Tony barely had a second to process before the air itself seemed to tense. On the other side stood the 3 fake HOA officers, eyes gleaming with arrogance, until they caught sight of what was waiting for them. Bruno. 200 pounds of muscle and instinct, a pure pit bull built like a tank and coiled like a spring. His deep chest vibrated with a growl so low it could be felt in the floorboards. Every inch of him radiated one message: you shouldn't have done that. The men froze. Their fake confidence evaporated faster than cheap cologne in the sun. Then, all hell broke loose. Bruno exploded forward like a missile, every ounce of that muscular body launching through the doorway. The leader, the same man who'd spoken like a self-appointed sheriff, didn't even manage to finish the word "hey" before the pit bull's roar drowned it out. It wasn't just a bark, it was primal. ancient, the kind of sound that bypasses reason and speaks straight to the fear center of the human brain. The leader stumbled backwards so fast his own feet betrayed him. One moment he was full of swagger, the next he was flat on the floor, arms flailing, face pale, eyes wide in terror. The second guy froze, body rigid like he thought maybe stillness would save him. It didn't. Bruno's attention had already locked on the third man, the one who bolted for the lawn. Smartest decision he'd made all day. Too bad it came too late. In two thunderous strides, Bruno was on him. The man's scream cut through the air just as the Pitbull collided with his back, sending him crashing face first onto the grass with a sound that made Tony wince out of sympathy. The second man broke free from his paralysis and ran for his life, arms flapping like a panicked cartoon character. The leader, scrambling to his feet, screamed, "Call him off! Call him off!" Tony stepped into the doorway, arms crossed, his dark skin catching the morning light, his tone calm, almost amused. "Oh, now you want to negotiate?" he said. The man's khakis were already soaked 2 shades darker, fear leaking through every breath. Bruno stood growling, inches from the man's trembling leg, waiting for Tony's command. Tony didn't answer right away. He just stood there, leaning against the doorframe, watching the chaos unfold like it was a Saturday morning show made just for him. The leader's breath came in ragged bursts, his fake badge hanging crooked on his vest. The second guy had already vanished down the street, running so fast his shoes probably had no idea what hit them. The third one, meanwhile, lay flat on his back in the middle of Tony's lawn, motionless, except for the terrified rise and fall of his chest. Bruno towered over him, massive jaws hovering inches from his face. The man didn't dare move. His eyes flicked up, locking onto the pit bulls. It was the kind of stare that made men rethink their whole lives. For a long moment, the only sound was the low, steady growl coming from Bruno's chest, a sound that vibrated through the air, through the dirt, through the man's bones. Tony let the silence stretch, savoring the moment. Then he finally whistled once. "Bruno, let him go." The dog let out one last thunderous growl, deep and deliberate, a final warning that promised there wouldn't be a next time. Then, slow and measured, Bruno stepped back, tail flicking once like punctuation. The man didn't move, couldn't move. He lay there frozen, eyes wide and unblinking, like he was waiting for confirmation he was still alive. Tony tilted his head. "You done trespassing?" The leader, now nothing more than the human embodiment of regret, stumbled backward, pointing a trembling finger toward Tony. You'll regret this," he barked, his voice cracking halfway through. Tony smirked. "I don't know, man. Looks like you're the one regretting things right now." That was all it took. The leader spun on his heel and bolted. The one on the ground scrambled to his feet, tripped once, and took off right behind him. They didn't look back. By the time they reached the corner, both men were sprinting like their lives depended on it, which, honestly, they probably did. Tony chuckled under his breath, dusting off his hands before turning back to Bruno, who now wagged his tail proudly, tongue hanging out like nothing had happened. "Good boy," Tony said, crouching down to pat his head. "That'll teach them." Bruno gave a satisfied huff. For now, peace had returned. If you believe homeowners should never have to answer to fake HOA cops with fake power, smash that like button and subscribe to Story Arc for stories that remind bullies what happens when they pick the wrong house.